We're looking at 4 things today. We're going to look at the Dagesh phenomena again. In other words, dots occurring in Hebrew letters and how that actually affects the pronunciation and also the syllabification. So we're going to look at the Dagesh Forte and then another one also called the Dagesh Lene. And then we're going to look at one interesting new diphtong called the Furtive Patach. And finally, we're going to look at a binder in Hebrew, the Hebrew word MAQQEF. These 4 things will then wrap the syllables part. Now, in no way do we suggest that that is exhaustive or conclusive in terms of grammar rules. As we progress deeper into the next season especially, we will start drawing up a master sketch of the rules for Hebrew as a language and then also grammar rules that applies to certain parts or parts of speech. But for today, these 4 almost new things in terms of syllabification wraps the syllable section, and then next week or next round rather, we will look at basic prefixes, basic suffixes, so that we can start distinguishing between root words and all their conjugations. And prefixes and suffixes make up an enormous part of word formation and therefore of word pronunciation and of our understanding of grammar. Today, wrapping syllables, the first thing, something we've discussed back in the alphabet. Some of the letters in Hebrew, and I'll speak about that more, there's a very nice little rule, an acronym called the BeGaD Ke-PHa-T letters. The BeIT, the GIMEL, the DALET, the KAPH, the PE or the FE and the TAV. These 6 letters change their sound if they get a Dagesh in. In other words, the KAPH with the Dagesh in is a strong K sound, where the same letter KAPH, which is also known as the CHAPH, is the letter without the Dagesh, and that's the more fricative sound. K versus Ch. The same with the P and the F, the P and the Fe. Same with the BeIT and the VEIT. And as we've discussed in the alphabet, normally the Dagesh Qal, or the Dagesh Lene as it is known, occurs especially when a Hebrew letter is in the first position of a word, okay? Makes it a strong sound. Interestingly, these softer version, the softer pronunciation of the BeGaD Ke-PHa-T letters did not occur in the Hebrew prior to the Babylonian captivity. This is something that was a result of the Aramaic influence on the pronunciation of Hebrew letters. Just bear that in mind. So the whole BeGaD Ke-PHa-T idea, that the idea that you make a letter stronger with a Dagesh Qal or a Dagesh Lene, this actually occurred after the Babylonian captivity. Next up is the Dagesh CHAZAK. Now, this is also known as a Dagesh Forte, and this is a doubling of Hebrew letters. And you find this very often in Hebrew words, and we'll look at 1 or 2 examples now. In almost any letter, you can have a Dagesh in the middle of the letter, and this would double the pronunciation of that particular consonant. There are exceptions, and these exceptions are mostly the ALEPH, the HE, the CHET, the AYIN, and the RESH. And when we dig into the text, there are 1 or 2 exceptions even on that rule. But when you find the letters ALEPH, HE, CHET, AYIN, and RESH, these normally would not get a Dagesh Forte or a Dagesh CHAZAK, a strong Dagesh in. In other words, doubling of these 5 letters normally does not occur. But in any other of the Hebrew consonants, when you find a dot, for example, in a mem, in a yod, in a shin, it would mean the doubling of that consonant in pronunciation only. It does not affect the syllabification. It's literally only the way you would pronounce it. One example here. Let's look at Genesis 1 verse 1. There's the word Hashemayim, which means the heavens. And there you find a dot in the shin. And literally, we would pronounce it not as Ha-Shemayim, but we would pronounce it as Hash-Shemayim. But as you flow through it, it is not a strong doubling of it. It is literally just something to be mindful about. Hashemayim versus Ha-Shemayim. Does it make sense? So it's the doubling of the consonant only for reasons of pronunciation. Another example, Genesis 1 verse 2, we have the word Hamayim, the waters. So instead of saying Ha-Mayim, we would say Hamayim, Hamayim. Here there's almost 2 M's occurring. Genesis 1 verse 3, one more example, Vayomer. Here we have a doubling of the yod, like that, Vayomer. By the way, a word that occurs all the time in the Torah. Next up is a Furtive Patach. Now the Furtive Patach is a kind of a diphthong plus an accent variant. We find this in words like YESHU'A, RU'ACH, NU'ACH, ha-ma-SHI-ach. In this situation, we have the pronunciation of a vowel prior to the pronunciation of the final consonant. For example, normally we have a consonant vowel for an open syllable and a consonant vowel consonant for a closed syllable. But in some words, for example, let's look at this word, YESHU'A. There we have a patach under the ayin, but the ayin is the final consonant. So you almost read the shu-a, first vowel and then the consonant. RU'ACH, NU'ACH, ha-ma-SHI-ach. And another rule, the accent always falls on the preceding syllable. So you would have YESHU'A, RU'ACH, NU'ACH, ha-ma-SHI-ach. And finally, number 4 is the MAQQEF. Now the word MAQQEF in Hebrew means a binder, much like our hyphen in English. Look at this word, Ben Adam, Kol Am. What the MAQQEF does is it takes two Hebrew words and almost joins them together, much like the hyphen in English, and gives us one concept. Ben Adam means the son of Adam. Okay, but when you put the MAQQEF in, it becomes Ben Adam. And note also, now the accent moves away from the ben. Normally the accent would fall on the part ben because it is a closed syllable with an accent. But here, Ben Adam, the MAQQEF shifts the accent towards the Adam part. So Ben Adam, son of man or son of Adam. The accent now falls on the Adam part, Ben Adam. Same with Kol Am. Kol means all the people. Kol would normally be an accented word, but since we have the hyphen or the MAQQEF, Kol Am now means Kol Am. The accent now falls onto the Am. Okay guys, these 4 rules will expand as we dig deeper into the text. Nothing of what we say here is final or exhaustive. Hebrew is more complex than that, and I'm trying to rope us into the grammar and into the phenomena of Hebrew as not only consonants and an alphabet, but Hebrew as a language. We need to slowly move into the arena of learning the rules of grammar and learning the overarching rules of Hebrew as a language. So these 4 things, the Dagesh Qal, the BeGaD Ke-PHa-T letters, when they get a dot or a dagesh in, it strengthens the pronunciation of the letter. Then the Dagesh CHAZAK is the doubling or the gemination of a letter. And there are rules attached to that, which we will look at once we get to the text. Third, we have the Furtive Patach, which is a kind of a diphthong, a UA sound or a OA sound. But here we pronounce the final vowel before the final consonant. So it would be RU'ACH, YESHU'A, NU'ACH, ha-ma-SHI-ach. And the UA or the OA sounds almost becomes a diphthong. And finally, the rule with the Furtive Patach is that the final syllable does not get the stress. It's the preceding syllable that gets the stress. YESHU'A, RU'ACH, NU'ACH, ha-ma-SHI-ach. And then the MAQQEF, much like our English hyphen, it binds 2 words together, forming one concept. The accent shifts from the first word to the second word, placing the stress on the second word. So you have Ben Adam rather than Ben Adam. Same with Kol Am, all the people. It would be Kol Am, all people or all the people. Okay, I hope this helps. Next week we will do a basic introduction of Hebrew prefixes and Hebrew suffixes, and how when you recognize some of these basic prefixes and suffixes, you're able to say, oh wait, when I see that, I can start taking that letter off, and when I see that suffix, I can take that letter off, or combination of letters, and then I can easily spot the root word, which is what we need for word formation and word pronunciation. Take care, until next time.